Hi everyone and welcome back. Now, following on from our last video about learning to see, and in particular learning to see light, we thought we would continue on with learning about the shutter priority mode. Now, this is the first point of what photographers like to call the exposure triangle. Now, when you take a photo, your camera needs to capture the right amount of light to create the exposure that you want to create, even if that final photo happens to be what could be traditionally regarded as either under or overexposed. It's the photo you meant to take. The camera does this using three controls: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. We will cover aperture and ISO in depth in upcoming videos, but today is all about mastering the shutter speed. In shutter priority mode, you can choose how long your camera's sensor is exposed to light, and your camera then automatically selects the appropriate aperture value. Shutter speeds are measured in fractions of a second, such as 1/1000th or 1/250th or 1/60th, right through to whole seconds, such as 1 second, 4 seconds, 30 seconds, and so on. Your camera will generally also feature a bulb mode, whereby you can leave the shutter open indefinitely, or for as long as your batteries last. Now, faster shutter speeds freeze motion. Think of it as you're capturing that little slice of life at that high shutter speed of 1/2000th of a second, whereas longer exposures, such as 1/4 of a second, 4 seconds, 15 seconds, and so on, convey a sense of motion. And understanding what different shutter speeds do is key to controlling how motion appears in your photos. And by deliberately selecting the shutter speed, you can make interesting, creative decisions that affect your final photograph. Creative control over motion in your images means you can freeze action with faster shutter speeds or convey that sense of movement with slower ones.
So Michael, for today's challenge, we're going to head out to explore shutter priority mode in the real world.
Yeah, that's right. We're calling this the motion challenge. We each need to create 5 images that showcase the creative uses of different shutter speeds effectively.
So we will need to include at least one photo that completely freezes motion and another one that shows beautiful motion blur or flow.
Yeah, that's right. We want to use all these different shutter speeds to create those different effects, but we can use any lenses we choose for this challenge, giving us flexibility to capture either wide scenes or zoom in on details if you like.
Yeah, okay. So for some of the longer exposure shots, we'll be using tripods to keep the camera steady. If you're following along at home and you don't have a tripod, don't worry. If you don't own one as yet, you can use up a rolled up coat, a bag of rice.
A bag of rice.
Some people carry them in their camera bags.
Yeah.
Or even just rest your camera on a fence post or a stable surface.
Yeah.
I suppose the important thing is to keep your camera just steady and still during those longer exposures.
Yeah, I often just use my bag, my camera bag for that.
Not a bag of rice?
Not a bag of rice, no.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely.
I suppose. And remember, in shutter priority mode, you're selecting the shutter speed and your camera is handling the aperture automatically. So pay attention to the exposure meter to make sure you're getting properly exposed images.
Yeah, that's something, that's right. This is something to be aware of. If you select a shutter speed that's too slow for the available light conditions, your camera will warn you. And it'll do this by blinking the aperture value. You'll see, such as f22, blinking in your viewfinder or on your screen, indicating it simply can't select a large enough aperture to create a proper exposure. Your image will either then be too bright or overexposed. The lens simply can't stop down anymore.
You can get around this problem of too much light reaching the sensor by either lowering your ISO or using filters, but we'll come back to those in upcoming videos. For now, we're just concerned with getting familiar with working with different shutter speeds.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to be talking about filters particularly in this video. That's for a later date. So we'll be judging each other's photos based on technical execution, I suppose, and creativity. The loser buys coffee on the next outing.
I'll get my money out now.
Well, before we head out, it's important that you know where the shutter priority is on your camera. Now, if you're using a Nikon, a Fuji, a Sony, or any other brand than Canon, it'll be the S mode on your dial or in your camera menu. With Canon cameras, it is known as TV, which stands for time value.
All right, so let's grab our gear, head down to St Kilda, see what we can capture.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Let's get going.
Lovely.
Lovely.
So an obvious place, hopefully at St Kilda, is to watch the trams.
Okay, let's see if I can't get some shots of the Ferris wheel. I'll try and slow my shutter speed right down just to get some interesting blur shots as it's rotating. So the Esplanade at St Kilda is good for cyclists. Let's see if I can get a couple and get some panning shots. I'll drop my shutter speed down to about 1/125th of a second and see what we get.
Lovely day. It's a great spot to watch all sorts of people and dogs and cyclists and action, etc. Great for photography. I really enjoyed my time here at St Kilda. Not entirely sure that got all the shots that I would like to have done, but I'm sure Michael has, as he walks past me with that great look of smiling success on his face.
So that was a lot of fun down at St Kilda yesterday, wasn't it? Had a lot of fun shooting different shutter speeds.
Lots to see.
Yeah. I shot with the R5 Mark II. I used the 7200 2.8, the 2470, which I'm recording this on the R5, and I used my 16 to 35. I didn't use my 17 because I figured it was a lens that's not a lot of people are going to have, but this would be more in line with a lot of people would be shooting with.
Yeah.
You used the Fuji.
Yeah, I took the new Fuji camera, the 50 to 230 lens, the
16 to 80, that is, isn't it?
it is,
Yeah.
so the 24-105 equivalent.
Yeah.
And the 70 to 300.
Yep.
Just to try and get some seagulls and some boats out on the water.
Yep.
And I even took an old Russian built lens, a Helios, for the nighttime type shots, just to see what that was like.
So that's the first time you've used that, isn't it?
Is,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It may well be the last two, but we'll see how we went with that.
Well, we went down there about lunchtime and we stayed until dusk so that we get a variety of different shutter speeds. Talk me through your selection here. The first one I see here, this is a shot that you've taken at 100th of a second.
Yeah.
The idea being we were going to use a variety of shutter speeds. This is of the cleaners cleaning the face at
Luna Park.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. So I just thought, as a composition, it was an interesting
Yeah.
aspect. You'd normally think of Luna Park, lots of light, lots of noise.
Yeah.
You don't often perhaps think about the maintenance required to keep the thing looking good. So I thought that was an image I could take basically in real time at 100th of a second.
Yes.
There was no need to slow things down or build things. I just wanted to show an aspect of behind the scenes type shot of Luna Park. So
Yeah. And this is the sort of shutter speed. It doesn't require a high shutter speed, it doesn't require a low shutter speed. So
No.
yeah, good choice there. Okay, so your next shot, I think we both tried to do some panning exercises, didn't we? You've used a 50th of a second here.
yeah, I probably tried 10 to 15 different shutter speeds whilst panning, and I'm quite happy with this being probably the best of the images that I could create, in as much as the subject is almost crisp and clear,
Yep.
whilst the background being quite blurred. It helped that he was on basically a walking speed moped, so that I could follow him with some ease. But quite happy demonstrating that at that particular speed, panning was possible.
Yeah. So really the panning technique comes from the hips, doesn't it? I found you're spinning at the hips when you. I actually prefer this shot of yours where he's even more crisp and you've got that lovely sort of motion blur in the background there.
I just didn't like it for too much clutter in the background.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I did a lot where I had deliberate clutter in the background to offset sharpness of the subjects. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from. But yeah, I do like this one. Now this particular shot you captured, this one was at a 50th of a second as well. Yeah, so yeah, that seemed to work for you for the bikers.
Yeah. I had to pay him $100 to come back 10 times. I eventually got it right.
And he was happy with that. I mean, yeah. Now in this next shot, I see that you've shot with a lower shutter speed so that your aperture is stopped right down, which gives that beautiful starburst.
Yeah, all the way around the subject's body. I was after a silhouette. I could see the silhouette was there in front of me. The dog was running up and down the beach, and it was deciding whether to sort of catch him absolutely frozen in the moment, or I felt that the 1/60th here was just the right setting to capture a moody type shot. And as you say, the starbursts all the way around the subject give it an interesting appeal too.
Really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As your lens stops down, which again we'll discuss in an upcoming video, but as your lens stops down, you get more of the starburst effect, and I think that's absolutely perfect for this shot. Interestingly, I've got a shot of this dog as well coming up a little later on where he was he'd been in and out of the water and he was shaking, so that was good fun to do. Now, love this. This is another one where you've used a slower shutter speed and he's definitely blurred, but it's got that sort of almost intentional camera movement, beautiful sort of motion.
And again, I was actually trying to pan a fast-moving poodle cross, chasing a bull. I never had a hope, but no, happy with the image.
So this was a 60th of a second.
Yeah.
So even though, you were trying to keep him sharp.
That's right.
I think it works perfectly like this.
Yeah, I think the image is nice. You know, whether or not it's a coffee-winning image, who knows?
Yeah, well,
but it tells a story. It does tell a story.
Ultimately, but it's also it's the way you feel about the image, isn't it? Because a lot of photography is about how it makes you, how it affects your emotions as well. And this really says motion to me, and I like it.
Again, paying the German Shepherd to be chasing him just out of shot.
Really helped. You were out of pocket a lot yesterday.
more than one coffee.
Okay, so we had the gentleman diving for the ball.
Yeah, slips cat type shot, and again went for a faster shutter speed, catching him in real time. The sun was doing great things at that particular moment, so I think it's a nice image.
Yep. Yeah. Again, just to go, that shutter speed used there, that was 1/1250th of a second, so certainly fast enough. That's the sort of shutter speed you want to be using to start freezing motion effectively. I assume you were using your longer lens. Yeah, you were. You were using your longer lens with this one. So
just wanted to isolate him from the background too. So
yeah, that's nice. The golden light late in the afternoon was fantastic, wasn't it? That was really nice. Okay, so we both had this landscape shot here, and I noticed that you've set a shutter speed so that you don't blow out the sun. Yeah. Lovely. This is really nice. Now, this shutter speed here was 1/1600th of a second. Talk me through this. What you were walking along, you saw.
Well, I think everybody saw it at that particular moment in time. So it's obviously the Port of Melbourne doing a very Star Warsy type composition, but needed to shoot at that particular shutter speed to sort of, as you say, not blow the highlights out of the sun. Lost the reflection a little bit in the water, but I felt that's a trade-off for what this composition's saying. So. Well,
you've got that silhouette effect as well, haven't you? Which is what you're after here, and I think with the sun not being blown out, it works perfectly, doesn't it?
It's good, yeah. And there was a helicopter hovering to the right all afternoon, so it was nice just to keep that out of shot too. So being aware too of what I call clutter.
Yes.
So in how you prepare that compositions.
This I absolutely love, and I did experiment with the wheel as well. This is a Ferris wheel down on the St Kilda beach here. I really like this shot. Now, you've shot this one on your tripod.
Yeah.
This was at 1.5 seconds. Absolutely love this. The Ferris wheel obviously lights up as it goes round. You must be happy with this.
I am, and I did try all sorts of shutter speeds here. Unfortunately, with Luna Park being closed, that was what I was hoping we might capture in the evening.
Yeah.
But that was the best of all the shutter speeds, in that you can still see that it is a wheel. It's not just a blown out highlight, etc. And you get to see all the detail with each of the cabins going around. So very happy with that.
Yeah, I love the shot. My only thing with this, I would even be tempted to just bring it in a bit as more of an abstract type shot. Like, I really like something like that as well. I think that works well. And you can see that the leading edge of the wheel is sharp.
Yeah.
Because that's constantly in the same spot. whereas everything else is nicely blurred, and I think that really works well. We then went on to, I then went on to shoot elsewhere, and you were shooting the traffic here using the tripod, and this is with your anamorphic lens.
It is, yeah, our friend from Russia. So that it's designed to actually have a tiny piece of fishing line through the middle of the optics, and that creates flare wherever there's light.
Right, okay.
So whether or not that's of particular interest here, but we did shoot that with a relatively slow shutter speed because we're trying to get the light trails more than the actual flaring of the lights. But it was an interesting lens to use.
Yeah, it's a little soft, isn't it?
It is.
That's the only issue with that one.
It's a manual focus. It was quite difficult to get the whole image sharp.
Now, with the next one, I know that you switched to a different lens here. This was, I think, with your 50 to 230, was
yes.
it?
Yeah.
This one, I really like this. What you've got here is almost like a Toy Town
That's
effect.
correct,
And that is lovely, isn't it? I love the streaking lights.
Yeah.
So you used it was a 3-second shutter speed here. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So just enough to not blow everything out, keep some of it sharp, focusing on the vehicles towards the front of the image, etc., whilst getting light trails on this side of the road. So yeah, I like the fact you've basically only got 1 or 2 vehicles in sharp shot to create that, as you say, that miniature look.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Oh, that's it. Well done. Yeah, I think you got some good images there. You must be happy with those.
I am, but I'm sensing that you're sitting on the coffee voucher. So let's see what you've got here.
So I started with, this is with the 7200 2.8. Now what I've done here is, because we weren't using filters, I still wanted to add a sense of blur to the image. So I wanted to lower my shutter speed as much as possible. The only way I could find to do that was an area by the side of Luna Park where there was an area of relatively deep shadow. So I got the camera to meter for that. And I've shot this at a 20th of a second. It did mean the lens stopped down to f20, which is as far as that lens goes. But I've managed to get at a 20th of a second, as the cyclist goes past, there's that little bit of shutter blur, motion blur, sorry, which I really, really like. Contrast that with the sharpness of the park in the background, and that was one of my.
It's a very well thought out image, the way that you've metered for that. So
yeah, thank you. I tried my hand then at getting that sort of tram picture. I think I got some reasonable success with these, but they're not perfect. Now, to capture this, I'm obviously panning with the tram, and my shutter speed here was a 60th of a second. I tried between a 60th and a 1/125th.
Didn't come down to 50th. No.
It didn't. I couldn't say. I think I was probably better at the higher shutter speeds and just making sure that, obviously, at a higher shutter speed, you want the tram to be moving.
Yes.
If it's not moving fast enough, you're not going to get that pan feel where the background blurs. So this was at a 60th of a second. This next shot here with it directly in front of the Palais Theatre, this was at a 100th of a second. And the tram is sharp, the
Nice and
theatre
sharp.
is blurred.
Good front to back,
Yeah, happy with that. The next shot was at 1/125th of a second. And I liked this because I had multiple blur. I had the blur of the motorcyclist in the foreground and the Luna Park in the background. So, I mean, is it a magnificent image? No, of course not. I don't like the power lines. I don't like the power cables at the back there as well, the lamp post. But,
But you've used the shutter speed to create different elements of blur.
That's it. We were looking to tell stories with it, weren't we? So rather than just produce sort of masterpieces as such. The next one, I was just wandering down the beach and I rested the camera, again using the 70 to 200.
On a bag of rice?
No, actually on the lamppost.
Okay.
So I've got some interesting abstracts on the waves there, the
nice.
sunlight on the waves, and the pebble is obviously sharp, where it hasn't moved. This was, again, I used the slowest shutter speed I could that the lens would allow me to use. And that was an 1/8 of a second just to get that motion in the waves there. I then did the panning with the bikes. I didn't use motorbikes this time, I was using the cyclists on the Esplanade. And this next shot was taken at a 1/160th of a second.
Okay.
I'm panning obviously with a chap in the white helmet. And it's interesting, this is what I like about this. He's in pin sharp focus. The other chap, as they're crossing paths, is nicely blurred. So I was
Lovely contrast.
Yeah, I was happy with that one. I liked that feel to that one. I'm panning obviously right to left as he's going past me. And again, it really is just a question of using that shutter speed of 1/160th and just moving your hips effectively.
Yeah,
as
it
you're
takes a
panning.
lot of practice, doesn't it?
It does, because I had a lot of out of focus ones as well. Yes, so yeah. Another cyclist as he's zooming past. This was shot at 1/160th of a second as well.
Yep.
You can just see the chaps in the background there are nicely blurred as he's zooming past. This is the gentleman that you caught diving into
Yes.
the sea. I
Yep.
got a couple of him. Here he is splashing his dad with water. Now I shot this at 5,000ths of a second. The reason being so that I could really get those water droplets
And you've done really well
frozen.
with that, and I like the black and white treatment too.
Yeah, I just felt it worked better as that
Highlights the
sort of
water,
silhouette
yeah.
feel. Yeah, so I was happy with that. I did actually get him again later on, just as he's jumping and trying to catch a ball, and
Yeah.
again I felt that was definitely a black and white shot. Again, I used a high shutter speed here to freeze the motion,
Yep.
and this was at a 3200th of a second, so that was one I was happy with there. This next one was again playing with the idea of motion in the images, and I've used the 7200.
Yep.
I've set it on a lamppost, and this was shot at an 1/8 of a second again. Now you can see that the Ferris wheel is turning, these people are walking towards us, but the sharpness in the image is basically on the uprights that uphold
stanchions,
the
yeah.
stanchions, that's it, yeah. And I think that just gives an interesting...
Were you thinking black and white when you took it?
Yes, because I was shooting into the sun,
Yeah.
as you can see from the light on the back of the stanchion there. So I knew it was going to have to be a black and white image, but I thought it'd be quite an interesting sort of
Yeah.
street type feel, but using shutter speed to create that sense of emotion there, or sense of motion.
I really do like that one. Yeah.
Another cyclist, and I closed in here because obviously he's nicely sharp and everyone else behind is blurred. So again, this is another panning shot where I'm shot at 100th
Yeah.
of a second this time. This is the same dog that you captured, but he's just in full shake. I love it when dogs
Yes,
do that.
yeah.
It's
Photographer's dream.
it is, isn't it? I love watching
That's
a
a
dog
lovely
shake.
image, yes.
Yeah. And seeing you can just see his tooth there as his jowls flap apart. To capture this was a 3200th of a second. So again, I'm freezing motion there. Here's another shot of the other dog that we were both looking
Sure.
at on the
Yeah.
beach. Again, 3200th of a second. It was a perfect day for dogs to enjoy the
Yes.
water, wasn't it? And there's his ball. This was the young lady that we saw playing with her children, and just as she jumped off the decking there, I shot this picture. I had obviously, you see the sun right behind me there,
Yeah.
but I've just frozen her in midair there.
Lovely.
That was captured at 3200th of a second
Yeah.
again, freezing the action shot.
Yeah.
So obviously I was sitting there with you, and like you, I was attracted to the sun going down behind the cranes at the background there. I focused more, excuse the pun, on the swimmer that was going past. He was going in one direction, and his friend was then going in the other direction a few minutes later. And as you can see, the sun's gone down a little bit lower. I've zoomed in a bit closer. Using a high shutter speed of a 3200th of a second, I've just frozen those water droplets. My intent there was just to really freeze that action again, and at the same time not have a slow shutter speed so that my sensor was overwhelmed by the light of the
It's a
sun.
very nice shot, isn't it? Yeah.
Then I moved on to flying the drone. I put the R5 away and decided to finish the day with just flying the
aerial?
drone. I got the squadron scrambled, yeah. And this was taken of the Esplanade, shooting around about a quarter of a second. And I've just captured a little bit of those motion blur in the headlights of the cars. And I quite like this shot.
Instant coffee winner. I'm not sure that it's entirely fair, going vertical.
Going vertical, but,
yeah.
But I think these two are my favourite ones in the terms of the overhead shots of the car headlights. I think it just gives it that really nice motion feel.
Yeah, and that leads me to mention what I did want to say before about the imagery I took with the light trails. I think taking them at street level, you lose an awful lot of what the potential image can be about. I think light trail should always be from a bridge or from above, not necessarily the sky, but you've done justice to the fact of capturing cars at night.
Yeah,
with the
no,
light
thank
trails.
you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there were no bridges there for
No, there
you
wasn't.
to shoot from, but I took two images of this. The second one, I quite like this one as well because you've got the cars turning, but also you have the tram in the far left-hand corner there that's stationary, so I quite like that feel to it. The rest of these shots, they're just shots of St Kilda and the city. There is a little bit of motion blur in there, but I did these more for me than for the competition, if you like. But again, of course, I'm using a slow shutter speed, and you can see that in the headlights in the on the road here as it goes past. So it just gives me that nice feel. After we finished, we decided we were going to finish up, and then I thought, well, I did want to just get a few more shots of the Ferris wheel, and these aren't part of the challenge we had between us, but they just finished nicely with giving an indication of what different shutter speeds will do for you when shooting in low light situations. So I went back to the Ferris wheel. I put the 16 to 35mm lens on my camera, and I shot the Ferris wheel turning at a number of different shutter speeds. So let's just quickly examine those. Now, the first one that I took, this one was shot at 1/6 of a second. So this, you can see just some motion creeping in here, and you can see the motion in the baskets. Then I went down to 1 second. The motion is more pronounced, obviously. 2 seconds. And then we go to 4 seconds, and you've lost any sense of the spokes there. It's been completely covered by the motion of the wheel. 8 seconds, it's just more of the same, if you like. And then 15 seconds, unfortunately the colour changed, but you'll notice at 15 seconds it really is just a complete blur, isn't it? Which I like.
But this series of images, if nothing else, encapsulates what the whole challenge on shutter speed was all about for the day. Just being aware of the different shutter speeds that you can use and the impact on the composition that you're going to get as an outcome. So that's a great series of images to demonstrate what today's been all about.
Yeah, thank you. So that pretty much wraps it up for this week's shutter speed challenge. Next week we're going to be looking at the aperture priority mode on your camera and how you can take control of the aperture to produce some really different creative effects. In the meantime, if you have any thoughts or comments, we'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Also, we have our Facebook page.
So if you'd like to undertake your own challenge, if you need a bag of rice or you want to go aerial but play with shutter speeds, please send us your images too. We'd love to see them.
And also, please don't forget to like if you got some value from this video, and consider subscribing. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video.
See you then.